reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. Hello everybody, I'm here at the Elder Scrolls Online booth with Brian Wheeler, who is the lead PvP designer on Elder Scrolls Online. Pretty cool booth here. The lineup here is one of the longest. I've talked to a couple people who were in line for an hour plus to be able to get in here. That's got to be something that's pretty exciting. So many people are excited to see your game.
It's pretty insane to see people like when they open up PAX and everybody comes rushing in. We're like, holy crap, here they come! And there's like so many people want to play the game, and it's great that they can finally play it here.
So what part of the game are you showing off here at PAX?
We're showing the Daggerfall Covenant, basically the starter area, and then if you're really quick, you can actually get out of, you can explore Daggerfall City, you can roam around in the areas around Daggerfall City, so it's around the level 5 to 6 area where we're showing people, and they've been able to just run around and pretty much do whatever they want.
Now, the one thing that I noticed during my playtime is the amount of choices that were in there for what I could do and the directions that I could take. Is that something that continues on throughout the leveling experience?
Yes, there's not only just choices in what you're doing in terms of whether you're doing crafting or whether you're doing dungeons or just running around the space, but also with your character. Like, you can choose to level up your character as a Dragon Knight that has dual wielding, or a Dragon Knight with a bow. Like, there's all kinds of choices you can make, not only for how you play, but what you make your character out to be.
So is that how you're focusing on character customization? You know, if I have a Dragon Knight and I want someone else to play with me and they want to be a Dragon Knight too, but we don't want to do exactly the same thing, you know, what are the things? Is it just weapons that they can do, or is there other ways that they can customize their character?
There's the weapons, there's whatever armor you're using too. If you're using light, medium, or heavy armor, you'll get different passive choices from the skill lines in there too. There's also Fighters Guild and Mages Guild, they'll have a skill line. And there's also the PvP, so we'll have skill lines too that you can customize your character with.
Now, I was talking earlier to someone else about the character progression and how it's working now, and the way in which the XP pools down into the different abilities. Can you go over that a little bit?
Basically, it's whatever you have equipped and whatever you have in your hotbar determines where the XP goes. If you're finding out that you really like all your armor abilities, and you get several armor abilities that you can use that aren't just passives, but they're actually, an active ability that you can use, that's on your hotbar, as well as using a full suit of armor, you'll get experience towards the armor you're wearing. Whatever weapon you're using when you kill something, you'll get experience based on that line too. So it's whenever you earn experience by doing, a kill or doing quests, that's where the experience flows into the lines.
So I'll kill a creature, I'll get some experience, there'll be some that goes towards my level, and then some of it trickles down into those different abilities. So can I, if I wanted to, spend those experience points on something I'm not using, or does it have to go into the item that I'm using?
It's not like you're spending the experience points into what you're using, it's just whatever you're using levels up as you're killing things and earning experience. When you do level up, you can put a point into health, magic, and stamina, and then you get a skill point that you can assign to anywhere that you have unlocked abilities.
Cool. So the combat seems really, really interesting in here too. I remember back in October when I saw it back at your studio, I really enjoyed the active part of it. Now you can attack, you can block, you can interrupt, but it's not a regular interrupt, is it? You're not pushing a button to use a skill, are you? What is it that you do?
Well, if you see somebody winding up a heavy attack, you can do a couple things. You can block it when they hit you, or you can interrupt them and they'll basically get, staggered for a little bit. And then if you hit them with a heavy attack, they'll get knocked down. So it's not just, I hit my interrupt button. There's things you do, attacks that you can make on them to either interrupt them or block what they hit you with, and then they'll react to it.
So when you're playing with a party and you're going in and you've got this big bad boss that you're fighting, is this going to be something that you're going to build into the mechanics of the combat so that, the guy who's up front and center, somebody's going to have to interrupt an ability, or else the whole party's going to get their butt handed to them?
There's some specifics that I'm not the most well-versed about when it comes to dealing with monsters in the end of dungeons. They are bearing in mind all the mechanics that we have for combat, so players interrupting monsters, getting out of the way of area effects that monsters have, getting out of the way of, lines of fire that they shoot out, as well as all those synergy abilities. All those things are taken into account, Whether a specific monster has, like, you can interrupt them or not, I can't say to how that exactly works. But, everything you learn in PvE throughout fighting monsters on your own will carry over into combat in PvE dungeons as well as in PvP.
So let's talk about the synergies, because maybe some people haven't heard about them. What exactly are synergy abilities?
Basically, you can run into an area, or you can set an area effect down that another player will run into and they can activate. In that case, one of the most recent examples is, what did he call it? Nova, or Sun Novas. You'll run in there and you hit it, and it'll do a burst of more damage in the area. So it's a combination of, I can be any class and activate that extra synergy ability out there. And monsters can kind of do the same thing, where they'll throw down a patch of oil, and then another monster go, oh, there's a patch of oil. He lights it on fire. There's some more synergies that we're working on, where it's basically a group of monsters that are of a certain type, like necromantic. If there's a group of monsters, one of them may start a ritual, and the other two will help him finish out the ritual, and he'll turn into a different monster entirely, who's a little bit more of a badass that you need to deal with. So there's all kinds of synergies for players and monsters out there.
Are there any where one character lays down an area of effect, another character uses their own ability for their class and just does something unique that a different combination would do, or is it simply setting off something that somebody puts down?
It's across the board, whatever an ability has. If it has a synergy available, anybody can set it off. It's not a class-specific thing.
So continuing on talking about the combat, if I want to make a spellcaster and I want to stay as a spellcaster forever, just straight down that line, what's my life going to be like? Is it going to be very fulfilling?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I play as a spellcaster in PvP sometimes, where I'll be basically a traditional sorcerer, so to speak, where I'm wearing light armor and I'm using a staff. And life isn't too bad in PvP or PvE. I can run through things pretty quick. Nick and Maria and the combat team, those guys have been doing a great job in making you feel like a badass when you're fighting, not only in melee but also in range. So life is pretty good.
So again, with the combat and the group mechanics, what about buffing? Are you going to have characters that are getting buffs out to their group before they go into a dungeon or a big fight?
There'll be temporary buffs that occur during a fight, but there's not like a matter of, all right, I got to buff you, buff you, buff you, buff you. Okay, we can go. It's in line with how their combat is. It's very active and temporary, like, hey, I'm going to give you a quick burst of health, or I'm going to give you a quick burst of armor. But it's not like, all right, I need to hit everybody with the various buff before we go.
So as players get into the content, they get into the higher levels of the game, and they want to do group dungeons or group activities. Are you looking to have any sort of looking for group tool in the game?
We are, but we're not talking about all the details of it just yet.
What about guilds? What are you looking at for guilds?
There will be player guilds. We'll give more info on that one later, but we will have guilds for launch. Yeah. It's important to any MMO to have guilds. Yes.
Crafting. Now, I've seen some different stuff, but how much of a breadth do you have with crafting? Is there lots of different choices, or is it fairly limited?
There's armor crafting, weapon crafting, alchemy, enchanting, as well as provisioneering. Provisioneering, what's that? It's basically cooking, making food, making beer, making spirits. But anything you loot from the world will be usable. So if you kill a rat, poor little guy, you can use his whiskers for something. If you open up a barrel and find something in there, you can use that for crafting as well. There's also the traditional, you get some ore from the world, you refine it, and then make that into a weapon or a piece of armor.
So you're looking at having things like gathering for mobs, having nodes out in the world?
Yeah, it'll be some monsters that after you kill them, you can get leather out of them. Sometimes you'll find wood and ore and various gems scattered throughout the world, and you'll be able to gather those out as well.
And I know it's one of those questions that everybody's asking, but I already know the answer to this. We're not talking about anything other than the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild, right?
For now, that's right, yeah.
And I know, I'm sorry, I tried to ask about the Bards Guild, but it just didn't happen. So one of the things that's really interesting about MMOs nowadays, and Matt was talking about this at the MMORPG panel the other day, is he said that sometimes MMO design is like designing games within games, or a series of games put together. Are these different games like crafting, PvP, are they going to be substantial enough that somebody who wants to focus on those will have a fulfilling game experience without being forced to go into the other areas?
Yeah, the crafting and the PvP, as well as all the PvE experience, they're all, like they said, games within games, and they're all very fulfilling. Like, as silly as it sounds, people ask me, what do I like to do besides PvP? And I love to craft. So I'll run around and like collect everything, and then I'll go back and make weapons. And people will go, really? You? Like, yes, I do. I love it. It's fun. But there are people that also, like our lead crafting designer, he will come into PvP and he'll just fire trebs all day. Like, he loves using trebuchets and taking walls down. So there's something out there for everybody, and everybody is having fun doing what they like to do, and it all does come together into one big, great game. That's what's making working on those projects so much fun, is like you see all these parts come together, and it makes one cohesive experience.
Cool. So you mentioned PvP. Let's talk about that. You've started to release some more information about it. What can you tell us about the PvP landscape and that experience is going to be like at this point?
Sure. Cyrodiil is pretty much the central portion that we use as our PvP space. It's about 700 or so years back from Oblivion. There were lots of ruins that you saw while you were playing Oblivion, like Farragut Tower and Rayless. These were things which existed in Oblivion as ruins, but in our game they're fully fledged keeps, structures, and support structures to take. So there's a keep with several resources around it that make the keep stronger the longer you hold them. And we basically took Cyrodiil and have it's all one zone, but there are bottlenecks between the territories for Aldmeri, Daggerfall, and Ebonheart. In those bottlenecks, that's a perfect spot for a stealther to go camp. And considering everybody can stealth, that's a great thing. All the keeps are also linked together in a transit line. So what's awesome to do, I do this relatively religiously on the playtest and annoy people. I take a group of 4 or 5 guys, and we go deep into enemy territory and start cutting off the transit lines that have keeps connected to each other.
So by transit line, you mean they can quick travel from one place to the next?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So you basically cutting off their supply lines.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like you go deep and you pretty much either you can light a keep up by taking out some of the walls, and that'll put it under attack, and people go, oh crap, we got to go back there and find out what's going on. That's another tactic where if I don't get anybody to follow me, I'll just take a treb by myself and just start lighting it up. It does take, there is a threshold. It's not just like as soon as it gets hits, it lights up. So there is a threshold that it has to take and pass. But you can affect the war as a small group or as a solo player.
And with the PvP, why are players going to, other than the travel lines through there, why are players going to want to hold keeps? Why not just everybody meet in the middle and fight?
Yeah, for all the keeps you own, you're going to get bonuses that apply to your character worldwide across wherever you are in Tamriel. So if I'm doing, working on a keep siege to get another keep captured to help us get a bonus, when we do get it, you'll be able to reap the rewards of that while you're doing a dungeon.
And that's faction-wide?
That's alliance-wide while you're assigned to a campaign.
Awesome. That sounds really, really interesting. It's taking a lot of the current push towards these secondary areas for PvP and really putting a new twist on it and putting an importance on the keep and carrying them. Now, you're thinking huge battles in PvP, right? What are some of the numbers that you can share? How big have you gotten battles to be?
Within the company, we've had like 300-person battles going on. We actually have on our video over here, the last time we did one, we filmed it, and everybody swears to God when they see it that like, oh, that's a bunch of fake NPCs. It's like, no, everybody can point to themselves as they're playing it. So we've had 200, 300-person battles with everybody flooding into a keep and fighting. So it's been great to get what's basically been in my crazy head for the past couple of years, seeing it in game and seeing those huge fights and seeing walls collapse. It's been awesome to see that.
So I'm sure everybody is out there on the forums and reading, even if you don't always, reply, and looking out on the web at what people are talking about. What's the one thing that you think that people are getting the most wrong? That you're allowed to talk about?
I know that there's still a perception that how can you do Elder Scrolls online? and why are we doing that? There's a worry of that it doesn't seem that we can do an MMO with Elder Scrolls. And it's been something that's been, if you notice in the modern world where, like with Oblivion and with Skyrim, when you see your friends sign on, the time is right, because you're like, oh, I wish I could join my friends, I wish I could play with them. And like as you've played here, it definitely is Elder Scrolls Online. It's the next Elder Scrolls game. You are playing it with your friends, and everybody that gets up and plays it afterwards, they go, oh, that's Elder Scrolls, it's so awesome. So seeing people understand that it is Elder Scrolls and it is online, it's been very rewarding to see that reaction here.
It's definitely Elder Scrolls, because I was able to go through a couple of the areas and pick up everything that wasn't nailed down and put that into my inventory. All right, so the last question I have here, well, two questions. First of all, in the Elder Scrolls universe, a big continual theme for players is freedom. And freedom to play the game how you want to. How's that continuing on here with Elder Scrolls Online?
When you get into your main Alliance area, you're going to notice that you can start to acquire new skills as you do things like the Mages Guild, the Fighters Guild. As you do PvP, you get other skill lines. A lot of the freedom is based on your character. So you can have a sorcerer that's a two-handed, heavy armor wearing with a bow. Like, there's so many combinations to make your character. And I know that that's a big focus, to make sure that you can make your character how you want it, and that is very freeing for people to not feel like I have to be this class with this armor with this weapon. That you can use anything out there, and also that the combat is very visceral. It's in-game. You're watching what's going on. Those things all feel like you're playing this game, which is very like you're watching the world. You're not watching your UI, and that is very immersive. And that the more you get immersed, the more free you feel. So
it's very minimalist UI.
Yeah, it's great having like just you're looking at the screen and that's all you see. You're not worried about where is my health bar, where's my experience bar. You're very involved in the game, and that the more immersed you get, the more free feeling it feels, where you're like, oh, I'll just roam over here and find an NPC over this location. So it's a combination of like the character, building a character how you want, roaming around the world and doing whatever you want, finding NPCs that need help. It's very rewarding to just feel like you can roam around and it feels free.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Brian. It's really looking great. Can't wait to see it. And of course, you've got a release date for me, right? Right?
We have this year.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
No problem.